Oh, it's dark. I can fix that. Hey, everybody, how's it going? How's the sound tonight? Let me go get some pretty lights on. All right, much more fashionable. You got to see my church clothes too. It's my streaming clothes. Cynthia, hello. Misty Bedford, good evening to you. Luana, good to have you. Janice, glad you're here. Jeff and Jill, glad to have you with us this evening. Susan is back, and so is the study. How's everyone doing? Ben says, good evening, y'all. I think that's all y'all, Ben, if you want to use proper English. It's good evening, all y'all. Just trying to help. Where'd you go on vacation, Susan? Suga from St. Joe Mo is out of the hospital. We prayed for you on Sunday and your husband. I'm glad to know that you are better. Thank you for the sound check, everyone. Cheryl is next to me. So all's going well. I'll give you a warning. I got started a couple minutes later than I wanted to tonight, but I think we're going to shoot for about 6 after from now on instead of 10 after, because I'm trying to do at least a chapter a night. Because even then we'll be in this for another half a year. Maybe we can do more, but we probably can't rush much more than that. 3-port cruise. Where to? Was it the Mexico kind of thing? Let's see. What is the Mexico cruise that we do so much? Yeah, you know. Belize, Honduras. No? What's the Mexico one? Cozumel. Was it Cozumel and Progreso? Or something more exciting? Cozumel, Progreso, and Belize, Cozumel, Honduras. Shake your head at me, woman. Nailed it. I absolutely nailed it. I'm glad you're able to do that. You're braver than we are. We are cruise people, or we used to be, but we're scared now. Although right now is the time to go on a cruise. We're like immune as anything. Jennifer Morgan, good to see you. Ooh, I'm hot. I'm about to upset my wife. We are going to turn on the air conditioning. Even though it's cold, cold, cold out. Boy, this computer I built to increase my streaming capabilities is absolutely amazing. But it puts out heat. It's like having a space heater right next to me. Come on, kick in. You can do it. There's the little air conditioner that could. Christine Post, good to see you. Yeah, Susan, that's why we like that cruise a lot too. Plus, you get to drive. You know, not a lot of people get to drive to the port where they leave. You know, if you're going out of Galveston, it's not that bad of a drive, really. Drive home kind of is not a whole lot of fun, but yeah, 30% full would be enough. Of course, you got to be careful. You might get on a cruise ship that gets hijacked and you end up having to take little ferries back because they don't want to get stuck in Florida and have their ship seized. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can Google it. It's a thing that happened. Did you see that? Yeah, we talked about that, I think. Yeah, I know. Cheryl just made me bring in some firewood because it's probably not great if it's got ice on it when we're trying to use it in case we need it. $7:09. We'll chat for another couple minutes. I love the crowd we've got. We've already got 15 plus on Facebook. Got some folks over on YouTube. So glad to have you tonight. Yeah, the quote was something like they were luxury pirates. So what happened is I forget why exactly, but one of the cruise lines they didn't pay their fuel bill. And so a United States judge issued an arrest warrant for the boat. That's what the article said. So I guess that's a thing that you can do. And as soon as the boat was going to dock in Miami, I think it was, they would seize the boat and they would hold it in impound until they paid their fuel bill. And so they just went right on by Miami and went all the way to the Bahamas, I think, which is where they were registered. You know, none of the cruise ships are registered in the United States. So they went to the Bahamas and they made people take ferries back to Miami, which was a probably not a fun experience. All right, it's 7:11. I think that we will get started. I'm excited to be doing this again. I mean, I still love preaching. Preaching will always be my number one love, probably. But boy, this is a very close second. I really like this study. I like the energy that I get from y'all. They didn't let the people off in Maine. They let them off somewhere, and then they had to. Yeah, I mean, they were just trying to not get their ship seized. They weren't trying to hurt anybody on board. They let them off, but then, like I said, they had to take ferries back to the States, which can't be a fun trip. Anyway, like I said, I'm glad you're here. I love the energy that we get in this little group. I love the fellowship that we have, and I want to keep that going. So no more stopping for a long time. I think we are good to go. I am at some point actually going to take a vacation. My vacation got interrupted by COVID, but I'm not planning on going anywhere. So it'll be a staycation at home, and I just promise you that I won't promise because I can't tell what's going to happen, but my intention is to stream through it. So I don't plan any more breaks at all. Dorothy Collier, it is wonderful to see you this evening. So we are set to move forward every single Tuesday from now until, who knows? From now until maybe Cheryl and I get on a cruise boat sometime. All right, so the last thing that we talked about was that Jacob, the smarter of the two brothers between Esau, was cooking a stew, and Esau, the stronger, physically at least, twin, came in from the field and he was famished, and he said to Jacob, hey, let me have some of that red stuff, so I'm famished. So they called him Red after that. Edom, really, but we would call him Red in our language. Jacob said, first sell me your birthright, which is just, you know, as one does. And Esau said, I'm about to die. What do I care about my birthright? So I don't know what to make about this. I guess it would be this is a case where you can kind of examine this from the outside, and you can look at it from two different perspectives. You can look at this as a metaphorical story that's talking about the origins of the Israelites and some of the struggles that they went through, or you can take it literally. If you take it literally, then you have to figure out what Esau actually means when he says that he's starving to death. Is he really starving to death, or is that, you know, I mean, I say that all the time, and I promise you I don't mean it. I could easily go 8 months without eating a bite and be fine. I might have some loose skin, but I'd be fine. Or did he go out and hunt game and not find any, and was out and literally was about to die? I mean, it's hard to tell whether that was metaphorical or literal. If it's literal, then his logic is sound. I'm going to die anyway, so yeah, if you want my birthright that bad, take it. I don't care. So let's take that approach first. So the literal approach, or he just didn't care at all and said, "Hey, I'm hungry, man. Whatever. Just give me the food. You can have the birthright. I don't care." And so what we talked about last time, just to remind you, is that basically Esau doesn't really care about the family line like most Israelites do. Esau kind of cared about his own journey, about himself, and that's kind of a different take, because it kind of seems like Jacob is the conniving person who only cares about himself. But Jacob actually cares about the birth line. He cares about this promise that God made to Abraham and then to his father Isaac, saying that he would make his offspring more numerous than the number of stars in heaven. So it's interesting. It goes back to that sort of dichotomous statement of the oracle that God gives to Rebekah when he says, one of your twins will be stronger than the other. Well, what did he mean by that? Because one is stronger physically, but one is definitely stronger of will, right? So it's all very nebulous. I don't think there's a right answer or a wrong answer here. There's just nuance and a feeling that we're kind of supposed to understand the tension between Jacob and Esau, which aptly demonstrates the tension between Israel and the other nations of which Esau will eventually be part of. Because again, the oracle said to Rebekah, "Inside you are two nations." So, and then remember, the most important thing as you read through this, it came up in our Isaiah reading on Sunday during church. We'll be on that reading 2 more Sundays. Part 2 and part 3 are coming. But Jacob is Israel. That's just important for us to remember. Jacob is Israel. Hang on just a second. Let me check this out. Encore. We were actively preparing for the arrival of a possible winter storm. Resources. Well, it said click here for more, and then I clicked more and it didn't tell me anymore. So anyway, that's fun when Encore tells you to be prepared. All right, everybody good on the recap? Everybody know where we're at? Everybody ready to move on to all of chapter 26 with the possible exception of the very last verse that probably actually belongs in chapter 27? I see a thumbs up. It's good enough for me. I'm moving on. Little Rascal Flats. I'm moving on. Okay. Now, there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine that had occurred in the days of Abraham. So there's another famine. Do you remember what Abraham did when there was a famine? Do you remember where he went? I know it takes a few seconds to go through. I'm going to see if anybody remembers where Abraham went when there was a famine, because I think it's kind of interesting. Anybody know? I'll tell you in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They went to Egypt. So when there was no food, Abraham went down to Egypt. I think that's really important for us to keep in. There you go, Ben. You got it. To keep in. Sorry, my phone keeps beeping. I'm going to turn off the sound. It's just important to remember, because y'all kind of remember what happens to the Israelites in Egypt, right? It's not good. But at this particular place, Isaac goes to Gerar, to King Abimelech of the Philistines. Now we've got some interesting details here. Because before, when we talked about Abimelech, we didn't know he was the king of the Philistines. And we know who the Philistines are because we all know the story of David and Goliath. And it is possible that this is a different Abimelech, but it's not. It's the same one. Remember, people in these days lived a very long time, at least as taught in the scriptures. There's just no reason to think it's not the same guy, right? They start out, there was a famine in the land, not the old famine, but a new famine. And so I think they would have said to King Abimelech, not the old Abimelech, but the new Abimelech. So it's the same King Abimelech. He knows the history of this family. So the Lord appeared to Isaac and he said, "Don't go down to Egypt. Settle in the land that I will show you. Reside in this land as an alien, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. For to you and to your descendants I will give all these lands." So stay here as a foreigner for now, but to you and to your descendants, I'm going to give all these lands, and I'll fulfill the oath that I swore to your father Abraham. And then we're going to hear something we've heard before. "I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of heaven, and I will give to your offspring all these lands, and all the nations of the earth shall gain blessing for themselves through your offspring. Because Abraham obeyed my voice, kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws." Now that verse 5 bears a little examination. Abraham obtained the favor of God by his obedience to God, loose as it was. But now God is saying that Isaac has earned the blessing because of his father's obedience. That's a little bit different. But he also says that his blessing will come through his children. So the blessing, I mean, which is it? It's okay. No, I misread. Yeah. I guess it says all the nations of the earth shall gain blessings for themselves through your offspring. So basically the older generation being faithful to God yields blessing for the newer generation. Now there are some psychological, sociological family systems theory at work here. The sins of the father are visited on the sons. That's not to say that God really punishes the sins of the father to the second, third, or fourth generation as a punishment from God. What that tells me is that the people of the time recognized that when a man was evil, that his children suffered, and their children suffered, and their children suffered. That happens today. I mean, it is rare, but something that happens when people kind of break the cycle of their parentage. And the same happens the other way. You can have wonderful grandparents, wonderful parents, be wonderful parents, and one of your kids goes off and has a prodigal experience, right? Um, but in general, these traits are sort of passed down from family to family to family, more through nurture than nature. So this is something that the Israelites have recognized. They've seen this sort of psychological, sociological, family systems thing happen. And so they're using the theology they have to ascribe to the situation. And their theology, again, I know I say this all the time, but at least now you know it. If you do good things happen to you. If you do bad things happen to you. If good things have happened to you, it's because you did good things. And if bad things happen to you, it's because you did bad things. So since that's the theology they're operating under, then because children sort of received blessings, a child was rich because his parents were rich. Well, his parents were only rich because they were good people who did good things, and that's why good things happened to them, right? Makes sense. That's their philosophy. That's their religion, their spirituality at the time. So, but to dig into this for a side, because Abraham obeyed my voice, kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws, is really interesting. Um, the word laws here is sort of anachronistic and is sort of not. This is written down, and the story is told by people who have been living under the laws that Moses brought down from Mount Sinai, the Levitical laws, the 660 some odd Levitical laws that we find, um, mostly enumerated in the book of Leviticus, etc. But there was no law given at this time, except for then again there kind of was, but the laws were very simple, right? Like don't eat from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That was a law. Um, it's just kind of interesting. The law had not yet really been given in the way that we will later talk about the law having been given. So Isaac did as God commanded, and he settled in Gerar. When the men of the place asked him about his wife, he said, "Oh, yeah, she's my sister." Wonder where he learned that trick from. For he was afraid to say my wife, thinking, or else the men of the place might kill me for the sake of Rebekah, because she's attractive in appearance. So when Isaac had been there a long time, he's already been there a long time, whatever that means. We don't know, but it was a long time. I've had some long days. It's been a long couple of years. I don't know how long was. But fortunately, it was soon enough. But when Isaac had been there a long time, King Abimelech of the Philistines looked out of a window and saw him fondling his wife Rebekah. I prefer the word cuddling, but whatever. So Abimelech called for Isaac and said, "So she's your wife," which is much better than saying, "She's your sister?" Why did you say she's my sister? Isaac said to him, "Because I thought I might die because of her." And here we have the same thing that we had the two times that Abraham pulled this shenanigans. And Abimelech says, "What have you done to us? One of the people might easily have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." So again, this is such a warped morality, right? That if somebody had slept with Rebekah, that it would have brought shame and guilt upon the Philistines, even though Isaac's the one who lied about it. And I don't know in this case what kind of agency Rebekah would have had in the decision. It's possible she might not have had a say in the matter. If she did have a say in the matter, then you would certainly think that she would be somebody who was also complicit in the sin. Of course, she, what does agency mean too? I'm not necessarily talking about just outright violent rape, but gone along with it for fear of Isaac being killed, that sort of thing. So, but anyway, evidently none of this has happened. And so Abimelech warned all the people, saying, "Whoever touches this man or his wife shall be put to death." So Abimelech says, "Hey, I've got it, man. Don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen to her, and nothing's going to happen to you." So how would this story have changed if Isaac had said to Abimelech, "Hey, man, listen, I don't know if you've noticed, but my wife is just smoking hot. And I'm kind of worried that like some of your guys might, they might whack me because they want to get to her. You're the king. Can you help me out?" I mean, I don't understand why that wasn't the approach. And I don't understand why there's no sort of punishment for Isaac or even for Abraham. In fact, not only was there never punishment for Abraham, but what happened every time Abraham pulled these shenanigans? They gave him stuff, right? They gave him land. And so the two times that Abraham talks about, lies about his wife being his sister, they end up giving Abraham a bunch of land to make up for the sins that they committed against him, to appease God, to appease Abraham, so that Abraham might intercede with God as much as he could. And so what do we have immediately following this? Isaac sowed seed in that land. So he wasn't, he was given the land, right? He was at least given use of the land. It doesn't say it, but he's a foreigner. He doesn't have any land. So they gave him land. Isaac sowed seed in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold. The Lord blessed him, and the man became rich. He prospered more and more until he became very wealthy. But he was already very wealthy because he inherited all of Abraham's wealth. So now he's even more healthy, right? He went from, I don't know what to say here. He went from, I don't know, somebody who's moderately rich. He went from like Tom Hanks money to Bill Gates money, right? More than he could ever spend. So this is the third time that a man has lied about his wife, risked the people that had let him settle in the place that they were settled, and was rewarded as a result. And in this case, not only do the people reward him, but God rewards him through this yield that he gets when he sows seed in the land. So what does this mean people think about Isaac? Something really good happened to him, so they obviously think he's a really good person. And maybe that's what's on Isaac's mind to begin with. That Abraham lied about it and everything worked out for Abraham, so I think I'll lie about it too and everything will work out for me. The Lord does bless whoever the Lord will bless. However, oh, I hate getting into this kind of conversation, really, and I won't make a big deal out of it, but I'm just going to mention it. The line that says the Lord blessed him, and the man became rich, and he prospered more and more until he became very wealthy. How did they know the Lord blessed him? I mean, he sowed, he had a really good yield, and he became rich and he prospered. And so the natural assumption, because of the theology that they have at that time, is that the Lord did it. You know, Jesus says, rather, that the rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous. So I don't know. He had possessions of flocks and herds and great households, so that the Philistines envied him. So was it really a blessing? This is an interesting kind of thing. You guys know the proverb about good luck, bad luck, who knows? I'll read it to you. I think I've used it at least one day in a sermon. Okay. This is the story of an old Chinese farmer who lived many years ago. Hey, Kim, how you doing? Watching from YouTube while you were driving home from work. I hope you were listening on YouTube while you were driving home from work. I'm sure that's what you meant. But I'm glad you are with us. All right, old Chinese proverb. This is the story of an old Chinese farmer who lived many years ago. He had one old horse that he used to plow his fields. One day, the horse ran away into the hills. Everyone said, "We are so sorry for your bad luck." The old man said, "Bad luck, good luck, who knows?" A week later, the horse returned with a herd of wild horses, which now belonged to the old man. Everyone said, "We're so happy for your good luck." The old man replied, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" While his only son was riding one of the wild horses, he fell off and broke his leg. Everyone said, "What bad luck?" The old man replied, "Bad luck, good luck, who knows?" One day the army came to the village and took all the strong young men to be soldiers for the emperor. Only the farmer's son was spared because he could not fight with a broken leg. Everyone said, "What good luck?" The old man replied, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" I love that story because who knows? In the ultimate time of things, you know, I stick with all things work for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. But at the time, is it good or is it bad? Because what happened now is he gained so much wealth. Remember, he was already wealthy. He already had more than he could ever spend. But now he's so wealthy that the Philistines are very envious of him. And so what the Philistines did is they stopped up and filled with earth all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of his father Abraham. So Abraham was in this area, right? And he dug these wells to have water because from water flows everything. That's why civilizations always developed up around riverbeds, right? Because they had access to water, the one thing that you absolutely have to have to survive. So they had these wells, and the Philistines were upset. And so to kind of get back at Isaac for being so successful and so blessed, they filled in the wells. So Isaac departed. Oh, sorry. So what happened is Abimelech, the king, said to Isaac, "Go away from us. You've become too powerful for us." So again, that's what Abimelech said, but I wonder what Abimelech really thought. And we don't have a way to know. Probably what Abimelech thought was, hey man, here's the deal. I told people if they touched you or your wife, that they'd be put to death. But right now they all want to touch you. They want to kill you. And if they do that, and then I don't put them to death, I look really weak. And if I put them to death, then they'll turn on me. I need you to get out of here, man, because you're really you're impinging upon my kingdom. That's what I think is kind of going on. Thanks, Susan. I'm glad you like that story. So, after having been told to scram, Isaac scrams. He departed from there and camped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. So Isaac dug again the wells of water that had been dug in the days of his father Abraham, because the Philistines stopped them up after the death of Abraham, and he gave them the same names that his father had given them. But when Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of spring water, the herders of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herders, saying, "This water belongs to us. This is our water." So he called that well Esek, which means contention, because they contended with him. Now, don't read too much into this, because if we have seen before, we don't know if Esek actually meant contention before this happened or merely after it happened. And that's how they know that Esek means contention. It doesn't matter. Just, it's a chicken egg thing, and we don't know which is which. So they dug another well, and they quarreled over that one also. And so he called that one Sitnah, which means enmity. He moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. Finally, they had a place they could settle where they had water. They had everything that they needed. This was their land now. This was the place they were going to be, even living as a foreigner if they needed to. Although I'm not so sure they are necessarily foreigners at this time, because remember, they're out of the Philistinian area, which is where they had originally settled as foreigners. So it's possible this land was more open to inhabitation, except for the place where every time they dug a well, other people said, "Hey, that's our water." But finally, they have a place where that can be their land. Now, this is not the promised land, but it's kind of a precursor to the promised land. And we'll see that in the naming conventions that we have here. He called this well Rehoboth, which means room, or broad places, saying, "Now the Lord has made room for us. The Lord has given us a broad place, and we shall be fruitful in the land." From there, he went up to Beersheba. That's a place where Abraham had visited, if you'll recall. And that very night, the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you and will bless you and make your offspring numerous for my servant Abraham's sake." So again, because of the obedience of the father, the son is being rewarded. The future generations are being rewarded. So he built an altar there. He called on the name of the Lord, and he pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. Then Abimelech went to him from Gerar with Ahuzath, his advisor, and Phicol, the commander of his army. So he brings his chief advisor and the commander of his army. That's pretty intimidating. And Isaac says to him, "Why have you come to me, seeing that you hate me and have sent me far away from you?" It's perhaps a little petulant. I don't know, seeing that you hate me. I don't remember Abimelech ever saying, I hate you. But anyway, they said, we see plainly that the Lord has been with you. How do they know that the Lord has been with him? Because he's got lots of stuff. Do you see the overarching problem with this? This is the prosperity gospel, which I absolutely, unequivocally, firmly will forever denounce as a false gospel, though there are many famous preachers today with more members in their congregation than I'll ever even see in my entire life who preach the prosperity gospel because it's such an easy gospel to preach. So I don't know. If you want to fight about this and you want to tell me that the prosperity gospel is real and I'm wrong, y'all know my phone number. We can have that conversation. I remember, who is the... I think he's not Joel Osteen, but I think he was also in Texas. Oh my gosh, why can't I find this quickly? Rick Warren, mega church pastor Rick Warren, back in 2013. His son died of suicide after a lifelong battle with depression. And it really sparked a good conversation. Sorry, it's California, not Texas. It sparked a significant conversation about how some of the evangelical Christian beliefs stigmatized those who struggled with mental illness because they're preaching the prosperity gospel. And so they believed that if you were a good person, they basically believed this Deuteronomistic theology. And Rick Warren sort of denounced the whole Deuteronomistic theology after that, the prosperity gospel after that happened. I don't mean to use someone's suffering to prove a point, but it was important to Rick Warren, so I think he would not mind me saying it. So, yeah, I was not thinking of the Bakers. I was thinking of Rick Warren because he sort of renounced the whole idea of the prosperity gospel. But this is what this is, right? So that we plainly see that the Lord has been with you. And that's because great things had happened to him. And great things only happen to people who have God's pleasure, according to this wrong theology. And I can show you again and again where Jesus says this theology is wrong. I don't understand how people preach the prosperity gospel with any kind of integrity. I don't think they do. I don't think they do it out of integrity. I think they do it out of greed. But I'm going to let that go and I'm going to move on. I've insulted some people in the past doing that, and if I've insulted any of you, I apologize. Except for I don't. But let's go on. Let there be an oath between you and us. Let's make a covenant with you, so that you will do us no harm, just as we haven't touched you and done nothing to you but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of God. So Isaac made them a feast, and they ate and they drank. So here he pulls on this sort of hospitality gift that his father Abraham had. But also, this was a very traditional thing to happen after treaties were made. So what we really have here is a treaty between the people of Isaac, because evidently not only has a part of this wealth has allowed him to assemble, I'm guessing, I feel like this has to be right, that his wealth has allowed him to assemble an army. Either through the population of his people that grew and their sons grew up enough to serve, in a military fashion, or he was able to hire an army or something. But the Philistines were actually concerned enough that they sought out Abimelech, and they're like, hey, our bad on sending you away. That we should not have done that. But while you were with us, we kept you safe. And now all we're asking is let's just continue that. We'll keep you safe. You keep us safe. Everything's good. What do you think? Isaac said, "Yeah, that's good. Let's have some dinner." So they had a feast and they ate and they drank. In the morning they rose early and exchanged oaths. And Isaac set them on their way, and they departed from him in peace. That same day, Isaac's servants came and told him about the water well they had dug, and said to him, "We found water." So I'm guessing, I think maybe, I don't know exactly what's going on here. It's possible we have the case where we've got a couple of different authors writing the same story. I think this might be the same. I don't know. Maybe it's not. It just says that same day Isaac's servants came and told them about the well they had dug. That puts that in the past tense. So I don't know if this is a new well, or I think it's the same well that they already got water from. Anyway, they said, "We found water," and he called it Sheba. Sheba means oath. Therefore, the city is Beersheba to this day. So again, we're back in familiar geography from the time of Abraham. Beersheba means well of the oath. So this is where they settled for a significant period of time, and this is the precursor to the promised land. This is not the promised land, but this is what it's like. This is what it's like to go from being a foreigner in a place where you have to ask for land to plant, where you're dependent upon the hospitality of others, and when they ask you to leave, you have to leave, to developing your own place where it's yours and no one can make you leave, and you've got all the things that you need, including water, and you've got livestock, and you've got people to protect it all, and you've got the beginnings of a nation. This is the beginning. Now, also notice, very interesting to me, is that we seem to have gone back in time a little bit. And maybe not. Maybe all this happens at the same time that the stuff's going on between Jacob and Esau. We don't really know, but to me, the story seems a little bit out of place, like there's some going back and forth, but it doesn't really matter. I just think it's interesting storytelling. So there's one more verse in this chapter, and I'm going to read it to you, but this looks towards next week, and really this verse belongs with chapter 27, kind of, or on its own, or however you want to look at it. But when Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. Remember what Abraham wanted to make sure Isaac never did? He never wanted him to have a Hittite wife. That's why they did the whole thing where he sent a servant to go find Rebecca, and they found Rebecca, and they came, and he had to go back to where he'd come from, and then now they're back out here again, because the Hittites were nothing but trouble. And the very next verse says they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebecca. So the in-laws are at war. So any animosity between Esau and Jacob at this point is significant. And now, even though, remember, Esau was Isaac's favorite, but now it seems like we're not quite sure what's going to happen with this relationship because of these women that Esau married that made life bitter for both Isaac and Rebekah. And that will lead us into Genesis 27, which we will start next week. I want to go over just a couple of quick things about this story today. I want to make sure I've said the things that I wanted. The commentary here that I read points out, as I did, if people always reaped the effects of their deeds, then Isaac and Abraham would have reaped disaster rather than blessing. Right? So this Deuteronomistic theology is being proven wrong right before our eyes, because Isaac and Abraham are doing horrible things, really. And from their horrible deeds, they reap blessings. So I will say, we are not yet in the book of Deuteronomy, And so the Deuteronomistic theology is not yet official doctrine to these people, but it's clearly what they believe. You can see it right here in the passage that we have read today. And I think there was one more note at least. We talked about that. We talked about that. We talked about Abimelech. So just to go back to the point of how important it was that they had this where they found this water, and they called it the room that means the word that means to make room or a broad space. To have a home, a place that one can call your own, means to make room, to give space. The Old Testament construes the experience of salvation in similar ways. We'll actually read these in the Psalms someday if we look at those. You have set my feet in a broad place, David writes. God, here they are talking about the promised land. David is. You've set my feet in a broad place. The blessing that comes in the midst of famine attests to an experience of salvation. So the famine that would destroy them ultimately led to Isaac going not to Egypt, but to Abimelech's land, where he was kicked out of there, and then they found their broad place. So good luck, bad luck, who knows? Abimelech confirms that the divine promises have been fulfilled. Even more, we see Isaac, and in this case, Israel, because if Jacob is Israel, then Isaac is definitely part of Israel, Israel's paternal parent at least, as one with whom the kings and nations of the world must come to terms. Okay, this is what's going to happen. And as we know, it's not going to go very well for the Israelites, not for a long time. I would wonder if it's going well for the Israelites yet. But nonetheless, they are a powerful people who have the blessing of God. As Janice said earlier, God blesses whom God chooses to bless. And God indeed blesses Israel, the people, no doubt. And that's been the promise, right? What is the ultimate blessing for these people? What have we talked about so often? It's progeny, right? It's immortality through family lineage. That's what the blessing is, and that's been the promise from God from day one. I will make your ancestry, your children more numerous than the number of stars in the heavens. But this claim about the world having to come to terms with Israel doesn't function simply at a political level. Whatever greatness comes to Israel comes because of God's blessing and not its own powers. Israel is not great because it's Israel. Israel is great because God blesses Israel. Even more, if and when power or greatness comes, it doesn't necessarily involve establishing hegemony over others or undermining their reconciling efforts. It's not about conquering. It's not about taking over. It's not about absorbing the surrounding people. It's not about retaliation for past actions. It's the fact that Israel is called to do what Isaac did, which is to make peace among the nations. That is the task that God sets to Israel. They don't do a very good job of it. Not in these Old Testament stories. But their job is not to take over all these other nations. It's to make peace with the nations. And in that, Isaac does the right thing. He accepts Abimelech's apology, such as it is. He accepts the oaths. He makes an oath with him, and they have a treaty. And now Isaac has learned from his father Abraham, and he's using his influence to build up favors with people and positions of power, and in return offers them peace. And that is very, very important. And that is our lesson for today. So a little faster paced. We got through an entire chapter, something I don't think that we've done more than once, and a fairly long chapter at that. And then next week we will talk about Isaac, or about Jacob, who has not only already stolen the birthright, but now he's going to steal the blessing from Isaac. And Isaac's going to die pretty soon. Okay. Yeah. Like buttons, smiley faces, frowns, angry stuff. There we go. I enjoyed it too. I'm glad you all were all here with us tonight. If you were on YouTube with us tonight, thank you for joining us. Good to see you. And we will be back next week. And also, by the way, for those of you who don't live locally, like Sue and Kim, I know you're often, I think you're working on Sunday mornings quite often. Last week, I was able to record the service with video. This week, I should be able to do audio and video together. I don't think it's going to be ready for consumption yet, but pretty soon the goal is to record the service and then stream it out at some point to Facebook and YouTube as if it were a live stream. And I'll be on the computer probably as that goes out, and we'll be able to talk and chat just like we do here. So that's in the works if y'all are interested in that. I don't think I want to stream it at the same time that church is going on, because I want you all to be at church, because church is about physically being together when possible. It's about the people, it's about the body. But not everybody can do that, and I want to make things open to you, including Christine in Pennsylvania. All right, everybody, stay warm. Go put stuff around your outside faucets. If you don't have the fancy little things you can buy at the store that have the styrofoam and pull up on it, you can just take like 6 HEB bags and put that over the spigot, and take duct tape and put that all around the bags, and that does a fairly good job of insulating those as well. But they are anticipating some burst pipes, so don't let that be you. Okay. All right, everybody, thanks for being with us. I've enjoyed my time with you. As always, God bless, Godspeed. Hope to see you next Tuesday. Hope to see you Sunday in church. Call me if you want to talk. Send me an email, shoot me a text, send me a message on Facebook. I am almost always available. And as always, thanks for watching.